Hi, Ananga. So nice to see you again.
Hi, Gayatri. Nice to see you again as well.
Well, welcome to our new podcast today. And we're actually going to be talking about the wonderful book that we've kind of read a bits and pieces of in our different podcasts, the Bhagavad Gita.
Mm.
And we have a dear friend who, after completing his education, being a gold medalist in engineering, he actually graduated from IIT Mumbai, which is a really prestigious university of engineering. Not only did he graduate, but he was also a gold medalist. And it's our great honor to have Rasik Raman Prabhu here. Thank you for joining us, Rasik Raman.
Welcome, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for bringing me in to speak with you and have some nice interaction.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Wonderful. Well, I want to say a few things about Rasik Raman Prabhu. He has actually founded, and Anga was wanting to share with you that he's founded an academy called as InPlug, which I think is so cool because it actually lets you plug into your true self. We've been talking so much about, our true self and how we can leverage on the Bhagavad Gita, which is a very ancient scriptures, and so many of these buzzword words that we use on social media today. Realizing your true self, your self worth, your right from manifestation to living up to expectations and dealing with crisis, all of those have answers in Bhagavad Gita. And our wonderful guest here today, Rasik Raman Prabhu, has actually derived those from the Bhagavad Gita into a very, very simple format. And so we're really honored to have you. And really, we're looking forward to hearing about your new publication and your old publications. Um, so, without further ado, we'd like to first hear from you that after graduating from a prestigious university like IIT, like people literally died to be there, um, what made you make a decision to dedicate your life to propagating teachings from a spiritual literature, giving your entire life to something like that?
Okay, thank you. If you give an author a podium to talk about his books, there's nothing better than that because these days people, anyways, don't read so much. So authors look forward to speak also. So thank you, Gayatri, and thank you, Ananga, for having me over. And talking about my journey towards becoming a messenger of the Gita or a servant of the Gita in sharing its teachings. Well, like 25 years back, I was a half-baked atheist, right? For when I was like kind of 14, 15-year old. So once my mother uh, told that let's go to Nathdwara. I said, well, there's Udaipur, there's the city of lakes. We have so much to, go around in Udaipur. Why do we need to go to Nathdwara for vacation? So she said, no, no, it's a temple town. Let's go there. So we went there, and there was so much of crowd and so much of rush. People were pushing each other out of the anticipation and enthusiasm to see Lord Srinathji. However, I was feeling out of place. I was feeling it was a culture shock. Why are people pushing each other for looking at a piece of stone? Somewhere, the kind of education coming in from the modern system was taking its route. So
Mhm.
but then anyways, I went inside, was quite indifferent to whatever was happening, came out, I said I'm not interested in this. But then I didn't see Srinathji, but he saw me. He said, well, I'm going to change your life for good. Best of luck. So
That's
now
interesting.
So now I go to Kota a few years later for my like preparing for the JE exam, and then I get into some bad company there. People like of 17, 18 years old getting into smoking, alcohol. I got completely disoriented. Didn't get into bad habits, but got disoriented. And that was a time I realized that this is something uh, which I need to, as Arjun says to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, Atha kena prayuktoyam papam charati purusha anichanapi varshneya baladiva niyojana. What is that force which makes us do undesirable, shameful, and harmful things? And this was a question which I was asking at that time, that how can I overcome this force? And then for youth today, it is the newspaper, it is the YouTube and Insta and so on, by which they get uh, knowledge about anything they want. But
Mhm.
that time it was newspapers, and
Mm.
I was scoring through newspaper articles for finding something about spirituality, and I would find some small snippets about the Bhagavad Gita, and that is where I got the connection with the Gita. And then I go into the college. The first person I bump into, my best friend, who eventually became, so he was a childhood devotee of Srinathji from
Interesting.
his childhood. And then he was the one who became instrumental in bringing me to ISKCON. He would tell me, "Come to Gita classes, come to ISKCON classes." And then eventually I kind of uh, followed that path, started hearing the Gita more seriously, and then I found that, well, this the world was hiding from me. This is a treasure trove of wisdom.
It
And
is.
then I connected the dots. Well, it was Srinathji who started it all. And then, ISKCON has many temples all over the world, but somehow I landed up in Radha Gopinath ISKCON Chapati, which is probably one of the probably only temple or few temples where you have Srinathji DT in ISKCON temple.
That's
So,
true. That's quite an
so
interesting
that's how.
connection. That's really wonderful. That's a question that most youth members of our society actually ask. When they're
Mhm.
asked to go to the church or they're asked to go to any, religious place, the youth is always questioning, the cultural beliefs of a family, whether it's from Jewish background, whether it's from Christianity, whether it's from Muslim background or Hindu background or any for that matter. I think every single youth goes through that thought in their heart. Is this even relevant? Why am I even here? Why do I have to do this? And it's also, I believe, the hormones that make you question everything your parents do.
I think even the book Bhagavad Gita, when I was following Prabhu, like just researching about him, but Prabhu was talking to, I think, one or two youths, and he was saying, this is a Bhagavad Gita where the youth think that it's a book of religion, but Prabhu said it's not a book of religion only, it's a book of solution. And, from there, I was like, wow, you can see it as a book of solution. And that's how you wrote your new book, the Gita Companion. I am, yeah, thank you for showing us that, Prabhu.
Well, maybe
Guys,
you can bring it a little closer to the
yeah,
camera.
yeah. And can you open yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for the lovely cover page. And can you open the
Yeah.
content, the table of content? I think that really, really picked my attention. Guys did share
So,
a small picture.
so the book has two sections. The first section is Understand the Gita. Mhm. And that has acronyms for each chapter, which actually represent the meaning of the chapter.
Can you read us one or two acronyms,
Okay,
Prabhu, that you really like?
so basically there have been acronyms in for the Gita before, but this attempt of mine has been acronyms which actually represent the mood and the message of the chapter. So chapter 1 is battle, because it's all about the preparation for battle. And I can really vouch for it that someone can remember the Gita in 15 minutes if you remember the acronyms, and it's so easy to remember. So
Amazing.
chapter 1 is battle, chapter 2 is eternity because it talks about the eternity of soul, chapter
Mm.
3 is activate. Krishna is saying you have to do action, so he's trying to activate Arjuna. Chapter 4 is wisdom because it talks about spiritual knowledge and how to attain spiritual knowledge. Chapter 5 is peace because it gives the peace formula. It talks about the Paramatma, the peaceful Paramatma. Chapter 6 is meditation. It teaches us how to do meditation. Yato yato nischalati. Wherever your mind wanders, bring it back. Chapter 7 is attach. Because so far in the Gita, Krishna has been talking about detachment. Oh, Arjuna, be detached. But now he's talking of Maya Sakta Mana Partha. Oh, Arjuna, become attached. So therefore, the acronym here is attach. Chapter
Wonderful.
8 is flight. And why flight? Because Krishna is saying, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Or antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram. So Krishna is talking that at the end of your life, whatever is your flight of thoughts, that becomes your destination. So if you have Krishna Smaran flight, you go back to Krishna, and you have A Brahma Bhuna Loka Punaravartino Jana. If you think of anything else, you will land up somewhere in this material world. So these are the flights that you can take at the end of life. And chapter 9 is supreme because it gives the supreme knowledge, the Raja Vidya, isn't it? Chapter 10 talks about Krishna, the Supreme Lord, and his sparks, basically his opulences in this world, like the supreme fire and its sparks. So the acronym is SPARK for chapter 10. And chapter 11, Krishna gives a vision to Arjuna to see the Virat Rupa. So the acronym is visionary. And chapter 12 is all about bhakti, about love. Yoma Bhakta Same Priya. My devotee is very dear to me. So how Krishna loves his devotee. Chapter 13 is about harmony, the harmony between Jeev, Ishwar, and Prakriti. Right now in the world, there's a lot of conflict between living entities, between people, between races, between countries, societies. There's discord and conflict with nature, with environment, right? So Krishna is talking about harmony between Jeev, Ishwar, and Prakriti. So that
Uh-huh.
therefore the acronym is chapter 13 is harmony. Chapter 14 is it talks about the three modes and how these modes bind us. So the acronym is unbound. How do we unbound ourselves? And chapter 40 and chapter 15 talks about the inverted tree of material existence. And Krishna is talking of uprooting this tree. So the acronym is uproot.
Hmm.
Chapter 16 talks about the divine and demoniac nature. And Krishna says you have the choice that do you want to follow the scriptures? Yes, Shastra Vidhi Mutrajya, or you don't want to follow it. So, choice. And chapter 17 talks about the different types of faith, acronym is faith. And chapter 18 talks about surrender, acronym is surrender. So, you can just remember the Gita in 10
That is
minutes.
really beautiful. I mean, the way you've listed the acronyms and based on the mood of the chapter. Many a times our students find the Bhagavad Gita really overwhelming with so many verses, but I feel the way you've simplified it is extremely attractive. Um, why don't
Well,
we?
that was just first section. So, if you want, there's a second section
Uh-huh.
of the book,
Please share.
which is consult the Gita, right? First is you understand the Gita, and the second is now you have a problem which you want help for. So Gita has a solution. Haven't we heard so many times that if you have a problem, Gita has a solution? You
All the
open up
time.
any page in the
Yeah.
Gita, that's the
Yes.
USP of the Gita. But many times people really struggle with finding solutions. So I opened up a page, a second and a third. Well, it doesn't work that way. You really need to know where to go in the Gita. Hmm? So
Mhm.
that was something I was kind of contemplating upon for a few years. And in fact, I taught a course called Bhagavad Gita Applied with the Mumbai University, where we were discussing applications of the Gita. And this is the result of that research. So these are the 18 emotions that you can go through in life, right?
Yeah.
These are
And it's
negative
divided into
emotions.
three segments: work,
Three
self.
segments
Work people. Yeah.
and people. So what happens is that we can have thousands of problems. Your problems, Gayatri, will be very different from Ananga's problems, and Ananga problems will be very different from my problems. But the underlying emotions that we go through, right? Your, the kids are
Anger,
not, huh?
fear, Anger,
Yes,
fear,
fear,
disappointment.
stress,
Stress.
anxiety, self-doubt, confusion. So, irrespective of the variety of problems, the emotions are limited.
Hmm.
So, there I found a way that if we can address the emotions, we can address infinite problems.
Hmm.
So, then,
Because
kind
the
of, this is the,
problems are based out of these combination of these emotions. That's what you're saying.
yeah, this problems
Yeah,
trigger emotions.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
is not the problems which we are really struggling with, it is our emotions we are struggling with.
True.
that's
Yeah,
True.
true.
That's
That is a
very
it
true.
is.
beautiful concept what you mentioned. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a fact. It's not the problem. It's the emotion that.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're
This,
able to control our emotions, the problem is becomes insignificant.
so they say ships don't sink with the water which is around them. Ships sink with the water which gets into them,
Mm.
right?
Wow.
So it is the water which gets into us, like those emotions which we are unable to handle, that causes all the trouble. So Gita actually helps us handle these emotions because the Bhagavad Gita is a journey from negative emotions to positive emotions.
Mm.
Arjuna displayed a whole lot of negative emotions. Siddhanti mama shushati, mouth is drying up, limbs are trembling, and I'm confused, I'm forgetting everything. To nashta moho smritir labdhva tvat prasadat mayachyuta. Sthitosmi gata sandeha karishya vachanam tava. So from that negativity to come to that state of positivity is the journey of the Gita. And this is something which we all deserve to go from that, take that journey. So here you go. So for example, from anxiety, if you want to go to serenity,
Huh.
so just
Wow.
as we have Google Maps, yeah, you want to go from point A to point B, you type in A to B and it gives you the map. Take a left, take a right, go 1 kilometer, like that. So these are the Gita maps, the Gita positioning system, the GPS of the Gita, which helps us take from negativity of anxiety to the positivity of serenity.
So, Prabhu, you have
From,
verses from anxiety, like from the Gita, taking you from anxiety to from that negative emotion to that positive emotion. Is it?
yes, step by step process. You
Let's
know,
read the next
one.
one.
Yeah.
Maybe we can
Okay,
read the next one.
Yeah.
so the
So this
from
is from
fear
fear
to
to courage.
courage,
Fear to courage.
from sadness to equanimity,
Beautiful.
right? All the time there are things which make us sad, gloomy, lose energy. How do we come to a state of self-control and equanimity? From guilt to acceptance,
Would you mind
or
sharing what's the
Yeah.
step by
Can,
step
can you,
process from
would you
guilt
mind
from,
to
reading?
acceptance?
Yeah.
so guilt to growth, you can call it the guilt to growth sequence. Okay, the first is 9.30
Hmm.
and 31, where Krishna says that um, क्षिप्रम भवति धर्मात्मा शश्वत शांतिम निगच्छति कौन्ते प्रतिजानेहि न मे भक्ता प्रणश्यति. So what Krishna is essentially saying is that every saint has a past, every sinner has a future.
Mm.
Is it not? Don't just get held back by what has happened. Shipram, very fast, very quickly, if you are on the right path, you will come, you will be growing. So don't let your guilt hold you back, right? Then actually 18.30 is the next verse where Krishna is talking about कार्य कार्य प्रवृत्तिम च निवृत्तिम च कार्य कार्य भया abhaye. So in Sattvagun, a person has clarity of pravrittim and nivrittim. Means what to do, what not to do, bhaya abhay, what to fear and what not to fear. So many times we feel guilty about what others have thought about us. Oh, I fumbled on the podium, and we keep on feeling guilty. We keep on whipping ourselves that why did I say this? So Krishna is saying, Bhaya, Abhaya, you are not supposed to feel guilty about this. So when someone rises to the platform of goodness, he knows or she knows what to feel guilty about and what not to feel.
Mm.
People may keep on thinking, but you need to move ahead of that. And then there is this 6.37 to 45, where Arjuna is saying, Arjuna is asking that what happens to a person who is on the path of yoga, but he or she falters and then succumbs to one's frailties and weaknesses. And then what happens? Does he or she become like a raven cloud? Krishna says, no, path naivet uh, uh, kalyana krit kaschid durgatim tata gachati. No, a person who is on this path will never, will always go ahead. And God, Krishna takes guarantee for it. That someone who has started this path, neha vikramanashastu, there's no diminution or loss. So basically, guilt is helpful if it directs us towards future,
Hmm.
but guilt is you know mm, unproductive if it ties us to the past. So Krishna says, okay, you made a mistake, learn from it and go ahead, right? And that's what Krishna is telling, that suchinam shrimatam gehe yoga prashto vijayate. Even though you made a mistake, but then you will get a better opportunity next time. So there's always a second chance, right? And
Beautiful.
then 7.28 Krishna says bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyante, which says it takes many lifetimes. If you want to succeed, if you want to gain expertise in any field, it is not an overnight job. So you need practice and perseverance, right? So Krishna says, don't lose heart. It takes time. Hmm. So we make mistakes many times. We feel that we are VIPs, very important persons. But Krishna says, you are not VIPs. You are WIPs. You are work in progress.
Yeah.
I
So
actually really, really appreciated how you've simplified this. For somebody, even practitioner of bhakti for a substantial period of time, uh, when you're overwhelmed with emotion, it becomes difficult to actually scan through
hmm,
unless you've had a really deep study.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think I've never read Bhagavad Gita in this light. Like at moments of distress, I would turn to Bhagavad Gita, but this is like such a handy companion book that you have,
right?
and
A
just
total
makes the life
GPS.
so yeah easier.
and I have a confession to make. It
Please.
works. It works for me also. Because
That's
I have
beautiful.
really tried it on myself. Well, when I was trying to craft it, create it that time, I was like, okay, it's an intellectual exercise I'm doing. But then when I kind of later on I was going through something during its publication and printing, there were so many hassles. So I was really feeling stressed out, frustrated, upset. So then I opened it up and read through the sequence, and then
I
I
was
said, "Oh,
actually just about to ask you that only, Prabhu, that you're walking, talking, and living the Bhagavad Gita. So, how did this
trying
vision
to."
come about to write the book in a very practical way? Like, even in this podcast, like we are trying to, bridge the gap between ancient wisdom and modern, the modern way of living. How did you, when you were reading the Gita, like how did this vision come about to write it in caption format, like you've written, like the acronyms and all, and was it just
Exactly.
because
What's the need?
did it stem because of your something, a situation that happened in your life, or in somebody else's life?
Well, Krishna says, "Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te." Krishna is only giving us all intelligence to do whatever we can. However, Krishna is also saying, "Ye yatha mam prapadyante, tam tathaiva bhajamyam." As you approach me, I will reciprocate. So, if you, there are various levels at which we can approach the Bhagavad Gita. Hmm?
Mhm.
And I can think of 5 levels. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
Sure, we are.
So the first is, look at Bhagavad Gita as a book of superstition. So people say, what is this Gita? Talks about karma, soul. Who has seen karma? Who has seen soul? Right? This is all just made up stuff. So book
Hmm.
of superstition. Some ancients wrote something. I don't believe this.
That they
Well,
even say if you keep the book, then it'll ensue war inside your house as well. So it is.
that's a superstition about the Gita, and I have a lot of issues about it.
Me
Well,
too.
well, if you put someone, like if you give someone a judgment without giving them a chance of standing up for themselves. That's not fair.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah.
Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita gives the peace formula not just for a family but for the entire world. Bhoktaram yagatapsam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam yatvam shantim rachati. The whole world can be peaceful if you apply the message of the Gita, right? And you ask those people who say that there's a war if you keep the Gita in the house. Well, uh, those houses where people don't keep the Gita is everything peaceful?
No,
And then
that's a good question to
thirdly, thirdly, well, who didn't listen to the Gita? Arjun or Duryodhan?
ask. Hmm.
Krishna went to present the Bhagavad Gita to Duryodhan also.
Yeah,
And Duryodhan didn't listen to Krishna's Gita. In fact, he confronted and tried to bind Krishna, and that's why the battle happened.
true.
So, on the contrary, we should tell them if you don't keep the Gita, there will be wars and conflicts,
That's a
not the
very
other
good
way around.
one. I'm going to use
Yes,
that.
because you won't have the tool to deal with your emotions.
Yes.
Had
Yes,
Duryodhan really had the tools to deal with his emotions of envy and anger and pride, we
Yeah.
wouldn't have the war.
Yeah.
So we're really grateful that you have broken this down so that we don't cause and create more wars
that's
internally and externally. And the way you're sharing the Bhagavad Gita into such beautiful bite size, I'm actually even thinking, even for spiritual practitioners, um, when we're talking about different verses or speaking about different verses, how we can effectively use all the verses that you've clubbed together, and we can
Group.
cross reference each other is really a great asset for. So thank you for putting that time into researching, which is definitely your strength. And for our viewers who have been constantly, I mean, have been hearing so many Sanskrit verses from you, can understand
Yeah.
how learned and how much of your heart and mind and space you have given. So you totally believe what you have shared, authenticity. And like you mentioned, as a confession, that you've used the book,
I
even
wish I
during
could
its
use all
publication.
more often.
I think that's a
Sometimes
testimony
you,
from the author itself.
So there's two sections to the book, like you mentioned, Prabha.
yes. Should I complete the
Oh, yeah.
five
Absolutely.
ways you can?
Yes. Yes.
So first is superstition, and then we took a detour into the
War.
peacekeeping mission of Krishna. Then the second is Gita is a sacred book. Okay, well, the Bhagavad Gita is good. It's a sacred book. Let us worship it once in a year, do some puja, and then okay, wrap it and keep it back. Right.
Mhm.
Well, you definitely benefit by touching the feet of your elders. Right.
Mm.
In India, there's this tradition: you touch the feet of your elders, but if you don't listen to them, they aren't going to be happy. The
Mm.
parents would say, better you listen to us and follow the good advice we are giving rather than just touching our feet, right? So it's good to show respect to the Gita, but then open the Gita to learn. And
Mm.
then the third level is Gita is not just a sacred book, it is a book of spiritual science. That's when you know that Bhagavad Gita is
Mm.
revealing to us a spiritual reality far beyond our material conceptions, right?
Mhm.
But then it doesn't stop there. Many times people just feel that, okay, this world is a place of suffering, dukkhalayam, shashvatam, and Krishna Loka is the place of happiness. So the whole point of the Gita is to take us from here to there. But no, Bhagavad Gita is also meant to make your world into a world of Goloka Vrindavan, right? So that while living in this world, you can create Krishna Loka around all around you. So therefore, the fourth level is Gita is a book of solutions,
Wow.
right? So where you can apply the Bhagavad Gita in your life on a day-to-day basis. And because Prabhupada gives the story that someone who was very expert in speaking all different languages, and then they wanted to find out what is his true language. Then they, hit him with a stick, and he used an expletive and abused word in a particular language, and they found out. So when difficulties and challenges knock at our doorsteps, we don't resort to the Gita language. We resort to the Gali, our original language, right?
Right,
So,
right.
so that's where the Gita is a book of solutions. But then it doesn't end there. Bhagavad Gita is not meant to be approached just for solutions. Hmm.
Mhm.
Bhagavad Gita is meant to be approached in happiness and distress, in every situation. Therefore, it's a book of shelter. And when we read the Bhagavad Gita just to feel Krishna's presence, right, that's when the Bhagavad Gita fully reveals its true glory and true love. And there's the story of the South Indian Brahmana and who couldn't read and understand the verses. But then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, because you have tears rolling down your eyes out of devotion for Krishna's love for his devotee, you have really understood the Gita. So the Gita is a book of shelter. When we can't just we can't put down our phone. We just feel okay. When I'm troubled, when I'm in stress, I just open Instagram and watch reels, or I see some YouTube videos or some Netflix. So that is what we can direct towards the Gita to
Mm.
find shelter.
I think I see myself journeying through the last two levels, like Bhagavad Gita as a book of solution to Bhagavad Gita as a book of shelter, taking shelter in both times, happiness and distress, just to know about God and love Him. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Yeah, it's such a
Thank
beautiful
you.
journey that you have. Even the five levels of approaching Gita, resonate. And I think it happens individually also.
Mm.
You begin with the first level,
Mhm.
and then you gradually, after you've dusted the dust of the Gita, you decide to really. And then there are people that have actually gained so much insight, not just insight, but actually also, like you said, shelter. Once they seek shelter, they have got answers to their questions because, like you mentioned in the beginning of our talk, that Krishna reciprocates how you put forth. So, in a similar
Yeah.
way, I also really seeing the simplified form of what you have done with, which actually comes across as a very complicated subject matter, the Bhagavad Gita. I really wanted you to share about your prior book to this, which is The Smarter You. Please share what was the thought process and what does that book really have? What do you
And
talk
what
about?
smartness are you talking about there also?
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be smart. I'm sure most of our audiences want to be smart.
And so this is this is an age of smartness, isn't it? So
Yeah,
there are
smartphones, smart
smartphones,
TVs,
smart TVs, smart cars, smart
smartwatch.
watches, smart smart homes, Alexa. I was once, in a home. I was giving a talk, and I was saying that there are smart watches, smart TVs, smart cars, smart homes, and then I said Alexa, and immediately Alexa crackled.
I better mute myself because she will get activated in my house.
So, and then smart cities. But what about the people living in them? Right? Are we also smart enough to use the technology or get used by the technology? Right? So that was the seed idea behind. Not that so it's not being a smart monk by writing about that, but actually, to be a spiritualist is the greatest smartness, right? If you want to be really cool, Krishna says you become a yogi, because a yogi is truly cool. Someone who is cool means someone who's unfazed, undisturbed. Whatever happens, they are cool, right? So Krishna says that um, that the greatest difficulty or misery can't shake a person uh, who has who has taken up to this path of yoga, right? So so yeah, so that was the idea behind the be the smarter you. So this is be the smarter you, and a sequel to that was be the smarter you at workplace for working professionals,
Wow.
right? So the whole idea is that while the gadgets are becoming smart, our lives are often becoming shallow, right? They say the machines are learning and the humans are hooked to the machines, right? So what happens is, out of a result of that, our lives become shallow, knowledge becomes finger deep.
Hmm.
Previously they used to say that memorize by heart, but now it's all on the fingertips. Like you just
Google
lose
it.
your memory.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I look at my boys, even with spellings, because of the spell check,
Yeah.
it's
Uh,
awful. It's
Yeah.
awful. Yeah.
That's
It's
true.
like there's nothing to memory. It's like immediate, oh, it'll correct it for me. Why do I have to? Why do I need to?
yeah, but then if you don't use it, you lose it, right? If you don't use the memory, you lose it. And
Yeah.
similarly with other aspects of our life, right? So knowledge has become finger deep, experiences have become selfie deep, right? We just want to capture experiences in selfies and fail to really experience things. Like you are on a college reunion and all you are scrambling for is to get selfies with this celebrity, with that personality, and then have a group selfie. So rather than being in the moment to experience that warmth of being together, right, we are just about selfies. So that experience, the rich experience, we miss out on. And before we can experience, we want the world to experience.
That's true.
Doesn't work that way. So experience becomes selfie deep, and then our emotions become smiley deep. When something happens, someone, we just share a smiley and it's over, right? We don't we
Those
don't feel.
emoticons are very expressive. Like there is an emoticon for each and every emotion you
I
could.
know. I'm guilty. I use them a
Me
lot.
too.
I don't have to say like a whole sentence.
Yeah, when I'm frustrated, there's
They're,
an
they're,
emoticon for like the brain exploding. I'm like, wow, there is an emoticon to express
they,
that as well.
that's good to use. They can complement us, but they
Yeah,
should not substitute us really putting things in words
that's
to
true.
others. So then again, emotions is what, like, we are talking of artificial intelligence. Now AI can take away a lot of things which humans can do, but AI can never take away emotional intelligence. So we got to use it, right? And then relationships have become screen deep, right? You have everything, all our friends are on the phones, on the screen. But
Mhm.
then what about person to person, heart to heart relationships, like sitting with each other and talking, just as we are doing, right? Exchanging ideas, exchanging thoughts and feelings. So that is the whole idea, that smartphones are smart apps. Smart people can work on these smart life apps such as focus, positive habits, emotional intelligence, forgiveness. So these are some of the contents of the books and
Have you also cross-referenced from the Bhagavad Gita in that book? Or that is just it's derived from there, but it's your realizations. It's not directly referenced.
so Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharat, Ramayana, and Shrimad Bhagavatam form the framework or the references for these books. The wisdom I have derived from them, but then of course presented it for application to our context and situations.
So, Prabhu, I'm still curious to know what does smartness mean, especially like we discussed that in this day and age where the world is so obsessed with like data,
Mhm.
speed, and hacks and all of that. Like, what does the smarter, the smartness means? Is it categorized into different areas of life that you are mentioning, or if you can just tell us what smartness means?
Okay, well, smartness in general means the gifts of uh, God, which are very specific and specially for humans, right? Our true potential, right?
Mhm.
A phone, which is a keypad phone, right, isn't smartphone. But when that keypad phone lives up to its full potential of what it can do, right? It can offer you touch, it can offer you the sense of sight,
Hmm.
you can it can offer you sense of sound. So when it really has explored its full potential, then it becomes a smartphone. So similarly, we humans, have we really utilized our full potential of what lies within us, right? So our true potential is in terms of experiencing and expressing love, is in terms of wisdom, in terms of not just thinking about what to do and how to do it, but about why to do things, right? So 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 these deeper abilities, the cognitive abilities, the emotional abilities of humans, when we unlock all of that potential, then we stand to become really the smart humans that we deserve to be,
Hmm.
right? I mean, especially our spiritual potential.
Beautiful.
Thank you so
Actually,
much, Prabhu. Yeah.
yeah, and I think smartness also means how to control your emotions.
True.
Yeah. Knowing what to speak, when to speak, and how to speak it is,
Mhm.
and that completely ties in from what the basis of the Bhagavad Gita really is. Like you mentioned, a spiritual practitioner does not really get overwhelmed with no matter what comes his way. Whether it's a lot of success, you're not overwhelmed with that. Whether it's a lot of distress and you're not overwhelmed with that. And that really makes you smart
And
because you
actually, that
know both,
reminds me also.
yeah, both of those situations are temporary. Yeah, Ananga, you were
Actually,
sharing.
that was reminding me that His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, he also says the same thing, that in situations where you can get provoked easily, the way you
Mhm.
behave and the way, the like you were mentioning that how to control your emotions. And he said, he puts it very beautifully. He's like, how you behave in provoking situations really are the test of, how you're preparing, how much you're advancing spiritually, and how wise you are. And
Yeah.
um, I think now I know, and I have these books like the Gita Companion and Meet a Smarter You to really help me manage my emotions. And
We will be
uh,
plugging in, a link to
yes,
the books. It is not available in the United States yet, but I'm sure it'll be available very soon.
yes, yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu. All this has been so insightful.
I know. I actually, when you were sharing about Radhanath Swami, I was reminded of the similar lines that
Mm-hmm,
another great spiritual practitioner, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, was
mm-hmm,
sharing on leadership. He's like he often mentions that if you squeeze an orange, you can't
Mhm.
expect mango juice to come out. You know,
True.
so he calls the squeezing to be put into a difficult situation in our lives,
Mhm.
and he said it whatever juice comes out is what you've been cultivating.
mm,
So if
Mhm.
in your life when there's everything's nice and it's just real, it's just steady and consistent, and you start practicing spirituality and deepening your relationships with strength, with keeping in mind the principles of the Bhagavad Gita. So when we're actually squeezed, then you really get what we've been cultivating. We'll get the strength rather than being overwhelmed. And we'll be on the other side of the spectrum from your GPS map. So yeah, he says you can't expect mango juice from being squeezing an
that's
orange.
amazing. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
profound.
such an honor to have you, Rasikraman
Truly,
Prabhu. Thank
truly.
you.
An honor
Thank you
for
not
me
only
too.
Thank you not only for your books, but for your deep study that you've really put in. In fact, a very famous person often said that a book or a 15-minute talk with someone gives you such deep insights of their entire life, the life of study. That's how I felt having this conversation with you, and I'm sure our viewers will feel the same way.
I could
And
see how he's living smarter, deeper, and more connected. So thank you, Prabhu.
I'm just
thank
beginning to explore and happy to share with whatever I have explored. And we are just scratching the surface. of the spiritual technologies. There's a lot of headway that all of us together, spiritual practitioners, need to make. The way the technologies, the scientists are working towards expanding the horizon for technologies of the outer world, really shows us what kind of grit, determination, and perseverance and exploration spirit they have. And I guess that is the kind of spirit all of us spiritualists should, imbibe, to do that, put that spirit into place, to explore, to really find answers deeper down in the inner world, because the inner world is bigger than the outer world. And there's much more exciting possibilities, opportunities available for each one of us to enter a beautiful realm of existence. So I'm so grateful for this beautiful conversation, which helped me to get an inch further into that space. So thank you so much.
I'm definitely going to have to listen to this podcast again.
Yeah,
Uh,
millions of times. And I can't wait to get my book.
Thank you. Thank you for your
Thank you so
time,
much.
your association. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.